email, but in the interest of time, I'd like to call this Shared Services Committee for Thursday, September 8th to order. I would like to change change the agenda or two items. Instead of dealing with 6.1 first, I'd like to deal with 6.2 because it may inform us when we get to the water efficiency plan. And the reason I've asked, or staff's aware of this, is because the consumption has, we've had significant decrease in consumption, which may, so staff will explain what's going on with the consumption, and that'll help inform our conversation when we get to the water efficiency plan. Because if the consumption is down, the revenue, the report doesn't say that, but the revenue is down too. So how much further do we want to drive it down? I don't hear any objections. So we'll start with the bi-monthly water report. Jamie will walk us through that.
Thank you, Mayor. I am pleased to present the bi-monthly water report for July and August of 2022. To begin, all water quality results during this period met regulatory requirements for the reporting period. If I could jump all the way to page 98, that's Appendix A. This shows the we had a peak flow right here of 10.8 megaliters. That occurred on July 27th. See to page 100, that's Appendix C. This shows the monthly demands. And we can see July is down significantly from last year at 13%. And although August isn't completed yet, as of the 17th, we were almost breaking even compared to last year at up by 0.2%. If I can go ahead to page 101, that shows Appendix D. Normally, we don't discuss this in detail. We have to point out that there is an error in the calculations here. We caught it too late before the report went out. And when you look at the 2022 totals for total supply, it states about 14,000 megaliters up to this time. In reality, we're closer to 2019, 2020 rates, which put us at about 15.7 megaliters. In comparison, year over year, we are down by about 10% in comparison to last year, just to give you an idea of what's going on. If you look at these numbers, it actually exaggerates it. It states right about 20% down.
Yeah. That's what caught my eye is when I did the calculation, when I saw that number, I thought, wow, that's a 21% decrease from last year. And so I had some questions about why is that? Is there a meter that's out of whack or are we actually down? Because we really haven't had any appreciable rain for coming up 90 days.
Yes, very
so
true.
Processing plants are pretty much wound up, so our consumption should probably be similar to what it was last year for September. And then, of course, in the fall, people stop watering their lawns. So good. So it is. So it's 10%. That makes me feel good.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor.
You indicated that August is on par. August was considered to be the hottest month ever for August.
Through the mayor. Yeah, August, unfortunately, we only have data up to the 17th.
Yeah.
So we were on average. Generally, we should see an increase, sort of the hotter weather. We should see an increase in volume being consumed. So the 10% we see now, I would suspect over the next, that 10% will drop a couple. By the time we get to the next report, though, we should have all of August sorted out in the high demand season established, and that'll give us up by year's end.
Good. Anyone else have a question? Or sorry, were you finished, Jay? No, you weren't finished. Sorry. Yeah, almost. I'll let you finish first. I interrupted. It's my apologies.
No worries. Yeah, last couple points of interest then. Appendix E and F on page 102. We'll start with Dixon. At the time of the report, we were at 84%. Just for an update, or 3 weeks later, we're at 76%. Lake level at Dixon is trending well. We're very happy where it is. Next page is Canal. Appendix F. It should have rolled down. Appendix F, Canal at the point in time of this report was 68%. Today we're at 59%. So again, Canal is trending very well. With that, it concludes the report if there's any other questions.
Good, thank you. And there's a recommendation to receive, moved by Councillor Plecas, seconded by Councillor Siemens. Any discussion, questions on the report or from staff or to staff? Seeing none, all those in favor, motion carries.
Just
Yes.
an update that Mr. Crawford won't be joining us at WebEx
Oh,
access.
he can't join? Okay, so it's just the four of us. I meant to mention Councillor Barkman is away. And I also forgot to mention, it's good to see everybody in person. I haven't seen some of you since 2019.
We
But,
came specifically to wish you all the best.
oh, okay, well, thank you. Anyways, welcome to our guests, both staff and council from Mission, our partners. That takes us to our next report, which is now Amy and the water efficiency plan research. And there is a new report or a revised report that came out or this, yes, I guess it was this morning. The background paragraph and the discussion analysis of wording is slightly changed. And the chart or the table on the next page, page 3, there's two or line items that have been added. The numbers haven't changed, but just it reads it's a little clearer, but I'll let Amy take it from something else. So the consultant's report is exactly the same. So don't get excited that there's something different in the report. Amy, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning. So the purpose of this report is to present the results from the water efficiency research. So I came to JSSC last September, and brought the water efficiency Econics who'll be presenting today prepared. And so today we have Econics who presented the plan and Metroline Research, which is Dave Cairns, who will be presenting on the methodology and the results from the research.
Sorry, Amy, I hate to interrupt. I noticed we have a speaker at this end, but there isn't that end. Can everybody online hear Amy
Pretty well.
pretty well? Not all?
I'll speak up.
Okay, outside voice. Sorry,
Right,
because
right.
I know sometimes people have a hard time understanding if that speaker isn't down at the end. So, okay,
thank
carry on.
you. Thank you. So I'll pass it over to Kirk and Dave to present on the market research.
Morning,
Sounds
Kirk,
good.
and welcome.
Thank you. Amy, it looks like you're running the presentation from your end.
Or can you?
I can, or
Yeah, that works. I mean, it might as well. It's one less thing to go wrong.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks for giving us an opportunity to speak today. We don't have much time on the agenda, so we'll be pretty brief with our presentation. There's a lot of content in the report that we've prepared that I understand is in the package. And so I think it's quite interesting reading, so hopefully you'll have a chance to have a look at it. But we're just going to hit the high notes today, given the brief amount of time. If we could go to the next slide, please. So just to briefly introduce myself, I'm Kirk Stinchcombe. I'm the principal at Econics. We're a consulting firm based in Victoria that specializes in water sustainability. So amongst other things, we do water efficiency planning for municipal clients all over North America. And we've been at it for quite a while now. I think we're in our 13th year. With the project for you folks, we actually commenced this work a while ago now. It's been a long project, and we've had a number of delays. So we started this work in 2019, and I was joking with Amy the other day that we've survived plague, we've survived drought, we've survived floods. So all manner of hardship has come our way in the course of this project, but we managed to get it over the line. So Econics led the work in partnership with Metroline, which is Dave's company. Dave will introduce himself in a second. And Dave and I have had the chance to work together on projects for clients all over Canada, doing very similar research to the research that we're going to talk about today. So we'll be able to talk about how kind of the results from Abbotsford Mission compare to other parts of the country. Just going to pause briefly. Is everybody hearing me okay? Is the IT working fine? Just give me a thumbs up.
Yes, you're coming through loud and clear.
Great. So the updated water efficiency plan that we prepared for you, we completed late last year. and it has already been brought to this committee and endorsed by you. It included 20 new and continuing programs under 5 different themes. I'll review those briefly on the next slide, but I'm not really going to talk about the new efficiency plan because it's already been brought to you and it's sort of something you've already had a chance to look at. So I'm just going to talk, well, Dave more accurately is going to talk specifically about the follow-up market research that we did to validate that new program and inform its implementation. And this is something that, when we've done these projects earlier, in our careers, we tended to do this research earlier when we were developing the programs, but increasingly we're doing them at the end of the program development so that we can ask people what they think about it and also just really inform how it's going to be implemented. And so that was certainly the case with this. We did the plan first, and then we went out and asked people what they thought about it. Next slide. So just again to review, the plan itself has 5 themes, 20 programs sitting under those 5 themes. So we want to reduce outdoor water use. We want to continue the existing Our Water Matters education and outreach program. A new set of work to work with your ICI and agricultural water users, where we see a lot of opportunities to help them manage their water use and also control their costs. By introducing efficiency measures. We want to focus on measuring water use and adopting volume-based pricing. Now, so very candidly, that's a euphemism for working on increasing metering in Mission specifically, although there's also some program elements specifically for Abbotsford in there too. And importantly, like when we look at these programs, we like in quote unmetered communities, like it's not accurate to say Mission isn't metered. Mission actually has all kinds of meters, including meters on your water production, like where the sources of your water, and meters in the system, and meters on your ICI customers, and so on. So we're just talking about finding a way to increase the metering so that Mission can catch up with other parts of the country. And then finally, a huge side benefit of increasing metering is that we can get better at controlling our system loss, non-revenue water management. And so going to the first agenda item, for example, controlling non-revenue water is one of those great areas where we can increase efficiency without affecting revenue, which is something I know you were speaking about just a few minutes ago. So that's just the flavor of the new program. We can talk about it more in the Q&A if we want to, but really what we want to focus on is the market research. Next slide, please.
So Kurt, just on that, well, that slide was up 0.5 non-water or non-revenue water management.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure who's using the most, or not the most, but who is all in that category. But I'm guessing our flushing system would be, or how we flush.
Yeah, so
part of that.
Non-revenue water
how would we improve that?
So, sorry, yeah. Non-revenue water management is often a euphemism for leakage, right? So typically leakage is the greatest component of non-revenue water management, but it actually includes a whole bunch of different things, including flushing, firefighting, because there's often a lot of wastage with firefighting around practicing. And you mentioned meter calibration earlier, so that's a good example of one where you can have misinformation because of meter calibration. We have water theft in there. There's a whole bunch of sources of non-revenue water management. And what you do is when you start these programs, you kind of look at it holistically and go, okay, where can we get the biggest bang for our buck? It's all about trying to save water really cheaply.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, next slide. Okay, so with that, I'm going to throw it over to Dave, who's going to walk us through some of the highlights of the market research.
Great, thanks. Good morning, everyone. We can actually go to the next slide, please. So we've submitted a full report, and I think you guys probably have been sent it with the background for this meeting. We just wanted to touch on a few of the highlights in here. So very quickly, first of all, my company, Metroline Research Group, we specialize in working with municipal and regional governments across Canada on all kinds of sustainability issues, water efficiency being our primary one. So the way we did this research is first conducted some focus groups, 2 groups with Abbotsford and 2 groups with Mission, to sort of dig in, and I can have a conversation with them about where their heads are at and what they understand. From that, we did a telephone survey with all residents of Abbotsford and Mission. We called it random, both landline and cell phone exchanges, and the results are weighted for balance by population between Abbotsford and Mission. And then the last step is we also did 12 interviews with companies previously identified by Abbotsford as high water users, both in agriculture and in commercial. And we called them to set up these interviews. Next slide, please. Several different topics, and I won't go into too much detail on these because I do have a few slides I want to run through with you, but basically understanding people's attitudes today about water efficiency and what it means to them. What are their habits, trends related to fixtures and appliances, like have they upgraded to low flow toilets? How many toilets do they have in their home? Low flow shower heads, water efficient washing machines, and so on. Outdoor water use, including lawn watering and the watering restrictions. In Mission, we asked some questions about attitudes towards metering, how people are getting information, how they like to get information, and then awareness of programs. Next slide, please. So the first point that we want to make sure we pass along is that residents in both Abbotsford and Mission do understand and do recognize that saving water is important and conserving water is important. A little more so indoors than outdoors, which is an example that we see in multiple places across the country, and I think partially because over time communications have tried to stress, updating your appliances and your fixtures and turning off the tap while you brush your teeth and shorten your showers, but it's only been more recently there's been a bigger push on outdoor water conservation. The lawn watering has already been talked about a little bit during this meeting, but we asked how often people are watering their lawns, and overall it's about a third of people who are watering once a week or more often. Another 24% who water once a month or a bit more, but less than once a week, and 41% who are not watering their lawns. What you see here is that kind of a segmentation in the marketplace. We've seen this in other jurisdictions as well. They have different watering patterns, and what that means for the organization is a need for some more either careful or targeted communications. For example, do we really want to send a message to someone who isn't watering their lawns to take care and only water once a week with the watering restrictions? And there's some sophistication required around that helps. On the upside, 82% said they're aware of the water restrictions bylaw. Next slide, please. In Mission, we asked how strongly they agree or disagree that all homes in Mission should have a water meter and pay for their water services based on the amount of water they used. It was, as you can see, there's some fairly even segments in that pie chart. But what it means overall is we had a little over half, which is 52%, who say they agree strongly or somewhat with having a meter, and 15% strongly disagree, 14% somewhat disagree. What this tells us, and also what I heard in the focus groups, is that there are some sense that metering can be a beneficial. There's also the fears about what it means to have a water meter in their home. But basically what it boils down to is a need for more education to build consensus and build support for the benefits of metering. And next slide, please. Along those lines, we did ask them what they think there could be, what advantages could there be to having a water meter at their home. And it's what you don't see on this list is that it's good for the environment. What you see is that people, it comes down to, can they save money? Can they better understand or measure how much water they're using? And is it a fair system? Because if you are using more water than your neighbor, you pay more for your water. So when you're thinking about messaging and when you're thinking about communications around this as you try to move forward, it comes down to educating people on what will happen if there's water meters. And then the messaging is less about, you know, the generic saving the environment and more about saving money, better measurement, and a fairer way to bill people for water use. Next slide, please. And how important is it that Abbotsford Mission continue to educate residents and businesses about importance? Strong support for that. As you can see, 78% say it's very important that that education component continues. However, on the other side of that, the awareness of programs is pretty low. 4 in 5 participants that we interviewed are not aware of any programs or services that Abbotsford or Mission Water offers today. The short version being that people are willing to do more and think it's important to do more, but currently they may not know how or why or what they need to do. So that again goes back to the education piece. Thank you. And then Kirk, you want to talk about the recommendations?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So we can talk about those findings a little bit more in the questions at the end, but just in the interest of time, as I said, we ran through it pretty quickly. So the market research report itself, and this is again separate from the efficiency plan, which was tabled late last year. We had just 3 simple recommendations in the market research report. So the first is to implement the actions and themes set out in the new water efficiency plan or in the update. The second one is to ensure that the program has sufficient budget and staff resources to be successful, consistent with the budget recommended to the Commission by Econics in 2021. So I'll just talk about that one briefly. So this wasn't integrated into the efficiency plan itself because the efficiency plan is a public-facing document. We don't typically put kind of detailed budget into those kinds of documents, but we did work with Amy and the rest of the team on a budget for the program, which I think elements of made their way into the staff reports. And you know, what became really clear to me during the course of this project is that and this goes a little bit to the discussion in the first agenda item there that we got to listen in on. You know, yes, I understand that your consumption is continuing to trend down. And frankly, I'd be very, very surprised if it wasn't continuing to trend down because it's trending down everywhere that we work with. That's just what's happening now across North America with continued implementation of you know, efficient fixtures and fittings in homes and businesses. And as Dave demonstrated, you know, we're seeing real changes in habits in water use outside. But I think that's, you know, so that's very much expected. And I understand that there's a relationship with revenue that we need to talk about. We can talk about more in a minute. But you know, again, I would be very surprised if the consumption wasn't going down. But that doesn't, in my mind, mean that the job is done or that there aren't many more gains that you could make. And with that comes all kinds of benefits. As we talked about in the efficiency plan, there's all kinds of benefits for the utility and for the community from water use efficiency, ecological benefits, community benefits, financial benefits. And so, you know, it was very clear to us in working with you over the last couple of years that you have many more gains to make. And I think this market research has only underscored that because what it's shown us is that people are willing to do more. But they're, as Dave said, you know, they're not very aware of a lot of your programs and they're not necessarily sure what they could do. And so it also became very clear to me that Amy and her team have a lot to do. You know, so Amy's doing a lot of work around water quality as well and various other aspects of sustainability for the organization. And frankly, I think, you know, I don't want to speak for Amy too much, but my sense is that she's hard pressed to make a lot of progress on the efficiency front with the level of resources she's got right now. So I do think that if you're going to make significant more headway, you with implementing this program, you are going to need some additional resources. And we did spend some time figuring out exactly what that resource need would look like. And I'll leave it to Amy and company to speak to that more. But we certainly did recommend that the program be resourced sufficiently consistent with the budget we developed. And then finally, we made a third recommendation specifically in the area of communications, because that jumped out at us through the market research that we need to really continue to build awareness of the programs through your I think good branding that you've got now under Our Water Matters. We look at the stuff all over Canada, and I think you've got a really good brand there. But I think it's pretty clear that more needs to be done to let people know about it. People are inundated with a lot of information, and it's very hard to break through the clutter. So I think kind of upping the game there a little bit would go a long way. I think that about covers it, Dave, unless you have anything to add. Maybe, I don't know if we have time for questions or not, but.
Yeah, I was going to say there's maybe some questions, but otherwise I think that's it.
So through the chair, thank you again for the chance to present here today. And if time permitting, I'm happy to take questions.
Oh, thank you, Kirk and David, for your presentation, and I'll turn it over our councils, our respective councils, for any questions on that portion. I know Amy's got some more information, but any questions of our consultants? Councillor Plecas.
Yeah, thank you very much for the report. And I just have a couple comments and kind of broad questions. You talked about more education for people, water usage, and I look particularly at lawn watering. And my thought was, and this may be, you also mentioned that in other communities in North America, that we're seeing a downward trend towards water usage. But I wondered, because I read some of the comments in the report, and especially ICI users, it's like, why should we worry? We have lots of water. So was there any thought that you said people need to be educated, but at the same time, are people kind of lazy in their mindset that we really do, because, in this part of the Lower Mainland, people don't see water shortages as a critical issue to them. Did that ever come through in any of that reporting?
Yeah, Dave, let me start on this one, Dave. So we see this in the research we do all over Canada, but I would say it's more acute in British Columbia. It's a very odd thing, because in BC, and particularly in sort of the Lower Mainland, well, really all across BC, there's this thing that we call the myth of abundance, right? So this idea that we live in the rainforest, we have water everywhere cascading down the side of the mountains. And it's true, we do have lots of water compared to some parts of the world, but in the summer, when we use most of our water, is when we get the least inflow, right? And so that's a very common misconception that we see. And it is something that we've seen other jurisdictions be quite successful, so particularly jurisdictions in Ontario. And in the southern US, particularly, where they're experiencing some pretty acute problems, we can see people being successful at communicating that, we really don't have that much water. The other thing that we need to be better at communicating in BC, and I see this in your community for sure, is that it's not just about how much water we have, like how much water is in a reservoir, say, or in an aquifer, but it's also about the costs of providing that water, right? So that, every time we have to upsize a pump, or every time we have to put in a bigger pipe, that has a cost with it. And certainly every time we have to expand water supply, that has a cost too. So people don't always make that connection between the cost of the service and the need for efficiency. And again, that's another thing that I think your game could be upped in, and we've provided some resources to Amy and the team to help with that.
Thank you for that answer. Second question, you talked about meters for Mission and more awareness or the benefits of doing so. This is a long process for us. We are in the process now. I think we're waiting a business case report with options. I believe that that's coming forward most likely either later or in the new year, early in the new year. Staff are putting together the report, but also we're working on a secondary suite issue. And just so we all our new homes are metered, but also there's improvement in technology, and certainly by waiting as long as we have, it's cost us more money. It would cost more money to meters if we did 5 years earlier. But it's a challenge. I'll admit it's a challenge, but we're going to get there. The other comment I would make was, in the case of metering, this comes probably later in the report, but we certainly look for support in our implementing the metering program if in case we do get another person on site to help us do some education. That would be something we'd be looking forward to doing. The only other thing I did support, I did see that it was the ICC doing water assessments for industrial users. I believe it was. You did some. I believe that is a very good step forward. You support that now. I saw that. I just was concerned. And the issue of metering homes and watering. I'm sorry. People watering the lawns in the summer, and the question is whether or not we should. There's only 34% of the people are watering their lawns in the summer. I think we have a very good program. I think people know that it's Wednesday and Thursday. Like me, they get up in the morning. I'm too late. I can't water. What do I do? It's 6 to 8 in the morning. I think it's a very good program. I think people just do. I hate to use the word lazy. My comment shouldn't say that. Like they just don't want to go out and get up there. But I think it's a very good program. And I don't think we need to advance ourselves. Like you indicated in your report, I think you made a comment. Do we help those other people who aren't watering on a regular basis? Do we add some, educate them or say they should be watering more? Or is it not a good idea in light of the fact that they do water more in the summer? Our water consumption will go up. That makes sense to you in saying that?
I think so I'd like to come back to the metering thing as well, but on that particular one. So what we're saying, I agree that your restrictions program is good, and I like your marketing on it. We gave some specific advice on that to Amy that I won't go into, but the other thing to remember is that your restrictions regime is largely aligned with other municipalities across the Lower Mainland, including all of the Metro Vancouver municipalities, right? So you don't necessarily want to change it for that reason. You want to stay aligned with everyone else as much as you can. And also, I do think that the system you have is consistent with best practice now. So we didn't recommend any changes to your restriction system. We just recommended some enhancements to how it's communicated. So I definitely agree that you do have a good program there. And really what Dave was pointing at earlier was what we want to do is maybe get a little more sophisticated with how we communicate. So we want to target communication to the people that we know are continuing to, the third of people that are continuing to irrigate pretty heavily, and maybe not communicate so much with the 2/3 that are now not watering. Let that, just leave them alone on that front. They're already doing the right thing, so to speak. Just on the metering topic real quickly, I tend to take a pretty philosophical approach to the whole issue of metering in BC, because I think it's really important to point out that BC is very out of sync with the rest of North America on this whole metering piece. So for example, Washington State, our next door neighbor, is 100% metered. The only places that aren't metered in Washington are some trailer parks and some very small systems. Everyone else is fully metered as a result of some state legislation quite a few years ago. Similarly, Alberta is over 90% metered. Ontario is almost 100% metered. So BC is really quite out of sync with not fully, with many of our communities not being fully metered. So if I look at the long term, I'm absolutely convinced that eventually Mission will be fully metered. Someday Mission will be fully metered. Okay, and it's just a question of whether Mission's going to be the last community in BC to be fully metered, or whether it's going to become fully metered at some point.
I'm glad you said that, not me.
So, let's be a little bit philosophical about this, right? And also, on the other hand, let's give Mission some credit for the metering that it does have. Calling Mission unmetered is not fair, because Mission has lots of meters, right? We just need to get from where we are now, which is partially metered, to fully metered over some period of time. Right? The rest of it's details. And I get that there's a cost to it. But, let's just figure out how we're going to get there instead of turning it into an acrimonious debate that it doesn't need to be. What this thing does, this research that we just did, is gives you some powerful evidence to say that, the community is actually pretty supportive of metering already. And there's very few people, only 15%, that are kind of adamantly against it. That bit in the middle, the people that are neutral or somewhat disagree, is about something like 30%. And those people can probably be convinced of the benefits if you get out in front of it and give them some good information. So I think a little bit of communications here to explain the kind of overwhelming benefits of metering relative to the, reasonable cost will take you a long way.
Good, thank you. I think Amy has a couple of comments and then Councillor Siemens is next.
To Councillor Plekas, I just wanted to add to education and awareness, and in terms of the abundance of water in BC, we get lots of comments at the public events that we go to. Actually, the results coming back on people not programs surprised me and upset me, but we're out there, we're doing public events, farmers markets, on the website, Facebook, but a lot of that is the educational piece when we explain to people, we don't have an abundance of water, like this is how much we have, and the environmental benefits and the potential incentives to save. You can see something click and people really do think we're seeing behavior change as well. Since I started in 2010, I see a lot more golden lawns than green lawns. And just to let you know too, we have the ugliest lawn competition coming out as well.
Oh,
Brown is the new green, so that will be on Facebook. So we're gonna get people to enter that as well.
Good, thank you. Councillor Siemens.
Thank you. I just wondered, correlation between the water usage, especially in industrial, and then also the wastewater. Because that will have a tremendous impact on there. And I'm just wondering, how are we managing that? Because I think we're going to probably have more food processing requests. And so I'm just wondering, how does that all play out? And then the benefits actually at the wastewater treatment plant, has that been illustrated or communicated to people as another benefit? Or are there some challenges with that?
The mayor, in terms of the ICI facilities, we actually did, when I first started, we did a lot of audits with the ICI block rate structure. And now that the structure is just a uniform rate structure, there's much more incentive to do these audits. And it seems like there's a lot more interest in doing them as well. I know that there's been a lot of water energy programs too, see ways to save money. In terms of wastewater, I might pass you to Stella to address that.
So through the mayor to you, back last master plan that we did tie some water. So annually we look at. Right now there's also dialogues with out there on the flows as well as the. So as we start to see water that goes to.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Follow?
Yeah, and then just a question on, we're getting more and more apartments. And I'm just wondering, we know that their water usage per capita is probably less than those, but how does that get handled? Because it's usually just a strata. So are we giving them tools to work with their residents on some of these conservation? Or I just wondered how we handle that, especially with older apartments.
Through the mayor. So in terms of a multifamily, yes, their consumption's a lot lower, and they're metered. In terms of they are eligible for the low extra rebates that we have. In terms of water restrictions, they're based on their complex address. I've had quite a few complexes who have been redoing their landscaping, been asking about. So we do irrigation and landscape assessments for them because they are large complexes with irrigation systems which use quite a bit of water. So we have assessments for them. So they are able to participate.
Thank you.
See any other hands? Oh, well, there's certainly no, what's the word? I don't think anybody will argue that radio read meters, that's not the right word, that we have in Abbotsford dramatically decreased our consumption. And that's thanks to Tracy and her team when she was city. So I'm hoping she can implement that program too. But what more importantly, well, I don't know, more importantly, but it also gave us the ability to see when people had leaks. And that really drove down because we had earned information. And when people get a bill, once a month or every 2 months or whatever, I'm on well water, so I don't get a bill. But it reminds them that there's a cost to water and it drives down consumption. So I think we have one of the lowest consumption on a per capita basis in this part of the world. I don't know how we fit in with North America, but I agree. We need to do more. I am curious, I think I saw on the slide 80, you met with 80 of the top users. What did they have to say about where we're going? Are they pleased? Are they not happy? They have concerns? And if so, what are those concerns? Because I think it can make a lot of noise.
Well, I can try to help with that because I'm the one who spoke with the businesses. So it kind of fell into two camps, and it was less about the kind of business they were in and more about whether they were the size of the company and or whether they were owned or operated by a larger corporation. The folks who are some of the farms, especially in the processors, either they corporately have some kind of a sustainability goals and sort of green policies, or their customers require certain things of them. So in several cases, the amount of steps that they've already taken to, for example, some greenhouses who do rainwater capture off the roof, or they have water recycling and water reuse systems already sort of baked into their process. Those guys wouldn't be good candidates for the water assessments that we were talking about. However, none of them thought anything other than that it was a great idea because they know of other businesses who aren't as aggressive or as active as they were in water conservation.
Okay, good. Thank
And
you.
if I could just add to that, it's probably important to point out that we recommended that you start with some pilot projects on this one. Just do a few to start with to get a feel for what kind of benefits you're gonna see, rather than kind of diving in with a huge budget and a lot of resources right at the outset. Just start with some pilots and work from there, because there's lots of other communities in North America have really robust ICI water conservation programs. So, for example, right now both Dave and I actually are working on a project with Region of Waterloo in Ontario. They have a fantastic ICI program. So does City of Guelph in the same neck of the woods. You can learn from those and kind of adopt some of what they do, and just start small and work outwards.
Good, thank you. Anyone else have any questions of staff or our consultants? Oh, Councilor Plinkett?
A follow-up. I know you mentioned in the rebate program that we're gonna do away with the toilet rebate program, possibly because there wasn't a lot of luck. I just wonder if there's other considerations going down the road for other rebate type programs. My real question is it because the update's not there? Is it because more and more sellers who are selling toilets and shower heads are already operating efficient toilets? Is that the reason for it? People are putting in new houses are automatically putting in required in building code now?
Yes. Yes. So I spent the first, 5 years of my work with this company helping communities set up toilet rebate programs, and I've spent much of the last 10 years helping dismantle them, because the building codes changed and the availability of product in stores like Home Depot or Andrew Sherritt just completely changed. It's very difficult to find a toilet that isn't efficient now. We also know that people don't replace their toilets to be water efficient. They replace their toilets because they're building a house or because they're doing up their bathrooms, right? So giving somebody a rebate at that point when they're going to replace their toilet anyway is a waste of your money. And the market research that we did here only underscored that. it told us that the penetration of water efficient toilets is already pretty high, and we know that it's only trending up. So I definitely think you're on the right track with getting rid of that toilet rebate program. You can't find very many of them around Canada anymore. I would say yours is kind of one of the last ones still running. So it's time to get rid of that. And I think it ends at the end of September, if I remember correctly. In the future, yes, rebates are still a good thing in the right space. So we see some communities around BC doing rebates on things like irrigation controllers for automatic irrigation systems. We also see in the States a lot of movement towards doing rebates for low income people because we're finding that low income people are not necessarily making the same gains in water efficiency that people with more money are making because they don't have the money to do up their bathrooms, so to speak, or putting it pretty simply. So helping low income people is something you might want to think about down the road, but I don't think it's something you need to do right now. It might be something to think about for the future.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. I don't see any other hands, so there's 2 recommendations in the report. So if somebody wants to move them, Councillor Plecas, seconded by Councillor Siemens. All those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Thank you, Kirk and David and Amy for that report and presentation, and carry on.
A pleasure. And I want to I've told Amy this already, but I'd like to tell everyone there, we just want to, on behalf of both Metroline and Econics, thank the commission for choosing us for this work. And it's been a real pleasure working with your team.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments. All right. Next item is James Plant bi-monthly report. And James is going to come back to the podium.
Thank you again, Mayor. I'm pleased to present the bi-monthly James Plant report for July and August. Plant met all regulatory parameters for this reporting period. And as of August 2nd, date of the report, we had 5,120 biosolids leaving the facility. I'll highlight if we could go to Appendix E on page 140, show toxicity curve. Within the red circle is our August results, which are sitting very well. Does conclude the report if there's any questions.
Thank you. There's a recommendation. Let's get that on the floor first. Moved by Councillor Siemens, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any questions?
No.
Report's pretty straightforward, I think. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Next item is award of contract for the James wastewater treatment plant, the standby generator. It's going to do that.
Mike. Morning, Chair and committee members. The next report recommends the contract award for the site works associated with the 500 kilowatt standby generator and fuel system upgrades for the James wastewater treatment plant. The generator and fuel system were purchased under separate. The plant relies on standby generators and stored fuel to maintain plant operations during power outages. Additional generating capacity and fuel storage are being installed to support the facility's growing power demands for at least 48 hours in accordance with the 2017-2018 James Plant Master Plan. Due to significant inflation in the construction market over the last year, the total anticipated project expenses will exceed the previously approved capital plan funding. As a result, supplemental funds are being requested.
Okay. Move the recommendations by Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Plecas. Questions of staff? Board? I had one question. Just so originally there was 3, we now have dealt with 2, so there's 1 left.
Yes.
So any idea when that might come back to the commission?
No, Stella, do you have?
Mayor, this is something that we have included. It will be based on it's something that's probably going to be.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at. Is this something for next year, the year after, or okay? So we're in good shape on that part. Additional fuel, I totally understand that because ran into some issues. Remember with fuel at certain places. All right, I don't see any other questions or hands? So all those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Next item is update on James Concrete Works. When he's going to do that. Oh, okay, the sinkhole. That's what it says on my other. I should look at my other agenda. That's what it says, concrete sink, concrete works. I guess it is concrete, or maybe not. Tony, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I could do an update on the concrete repair works project if you like.
No, that's not on the agenda. That's just, it's on this piece of paper, but it's not on the agenda. Carry on.
Thank you. So currently, we have the Maskey Dyke sinkhole project at the end of the James plant. There's a budget right now of just over $1,079,000. We have grant funding of $750,000. The city or the joint services committee is funding the remaining portion of the project. We have a grant deadline that's January 31st, 2023. We have retained on-site engineering and they have their geotech sub-consultant GOS working on this project. They have found the problem at the sinkhole location to be for soils, sandy silt soil that seems to be, we're hoping it's specific to this location. That's very susceptible to pressure or table differential. That combined with this location where we water table changes due to the slough, Fraser River, it's combining to create the sinkhole. We created a plan to make some repairs at this location, basically taking out this poor soil and putting back some more suitable material. It's going to require some planning, some micropiles, temporary access to the dike will be installed. This temporary access looked at a number of options. The least cost option is a temporary bridge over the road. Access to the plant for construction, emergency, lights, that sort of thing. Probably 6 to 8 weeks worth of work to do this repair. Sinkhole location. There's a bit of a balancing act in that we need to wait for the holding back water right now for irrigation. That stops November 15th. We'll have about a month or 2 months, depending on the weather, or the rains come. Once the rains start coming back, we want to be at least backfilled enough so that we're not in that water table. The original estimates, we didn't include the temporary access. Costs are still known at this time. We're not sure how far this unsuitable material extends. East and west in the dike as well. We will start to see that as we dig down. We maybe need to make adjustments. Given project work window, uncertainty of this poor dike material, I think additional funding may be required. Therefore, we're recommending that additional contingency amounts be allocated. Here's the remaining joint sewer contingency funding in the amount of $167,400. We are recommending to be set aside and added to the project further contingency. So it is recommended that a budget be approved in the amount of $1,246,400 and that the GM, General Manager of Engineering, Regional Utilities have the authority to approve contracts and work up to.
Thank you. Recommendations moved by Councillor Seaman, second by Councillor Plecas. Discussion, questions of staff?
No, it's gotta get done.
Yeah, no.
What we do about that. Windows, limited opportunity to do it, you know what you're doing, so. The challenge, I see, I read through that report, very challenging. Very careful. All works out.
Good. I don't see any other hands. All those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. That takes us to financial statements. Me is going to take us through this, I believe. So that's what it says here.
Hi, Chair, councillors, committee members. My name is Jimmy Chan. I'm a financial analyst for the city of Abbotsford. And I'll spend the next couple of moments discussing the preliminary financial statements for the operating and capital financial activities for the 7-month period ending July 31st, 2022, along with the projected year-end bid. So to summarize, overall operating and capital financial activities for water and sewer are within the approved WSC plan for the year. Appendix A, overall a favorable variance of $482,000 by 31st. Moving on to Appendix B here. Overall, for the sewer operating financial statements, a small unfavorable variance is projected at July 31st of 2022. Moving on to Appendix.
Jimmy, just a question on that last slide. So under revenue, under disposal fees, I noticed that group plan was for 61,000. Year to date, we're at 185, projecting 200. Is that just timing, or is there something happening there that's driving up those revenue numbers?
Yes, that's a great question. That is timing. Unfortunately, at the time of putting out these reports, we weren't able to get an updated projection number from the manager. But since then, in the last couple of weeks, he does agree with an updated projection number of somewhere closer to $300,000 for the year.
Good, thank you.
So speaking to the water capital statements here, water capital expenditures are currently within the approved budget for 2022. A total of $502,000 was spent at July 31st on projects, with a total budget of $3 million. The 2022 approved or amended capital budget is 11.3 million. Moving on to the sewer capital statements here. Sewer capital expenditures are currently within budget for 2022. A total of $690,000 was spent at July 31st on projects, with a total budget of $3.8 million. The 2022 approved or amended capital budget is $10.9 million. That concludes our section on the financial statement.
Recommendations moved by Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Hamilton. Questions, Councillor Siemens?
Just on the water operating where we have the favorable variance, it's largely because of vacancies. How are we managing our way through that? I know that it says that there's less inspections expected because of, so do we contract out, or are we able to fill those variances and catch up?
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, what we've been doing is utilizing staff. We've also been in place where we can skilled, which there is a reduced cost. Higher versus.
Great. And looking forward, we're anticipating those vacancies. We'll be able to fill those in the not too distant future, or are there? I know we're having challenges in just about every department finding. So, yeah.
Yes, again, through the mayor, we've actually. Seen some.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Peckus.
I don't know if this relates to the question that Ron asked earlier, but under the sewer operating, you got summary of expenditure. Biomanagement is unfavorable. I guess, and indicated in the higher contracts are ongoing, or is it something that we're going to be seeing higher contract service going to move forward?
Thank you. Through the chair, that's a very good question. We are actually seeing there were some changes that was made to one of those. And we will be seeing some of that, unfortunately. That will be presented.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, if any, motion carries.
For item 0.1, the adoption of minutes.
No, I don't, I think I missed that.
For July.
Yes, I did miss that, so thank you for picking that up. Adoptions moved by Councillor Seaman, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Are there any errors or omissions? Guess I was so excited to get going. We were late that I forgot about that. All those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Thank you for pointing that out. And that takes us to adjournment. And, or sorry, before that, so the next meeting is Thursday, November 10th. So that will be 3 days after our new council sworn in. I don't know.
November
Okay.
3rd,
so-
4th, something like that.
So there for sure will be a new mayor in the chair here, and I don't know what's gonna happen.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah,
Could all be new.
Yeah, no. All right, motion to adjourn then would be in order. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, second by Councillor Siemens. All those in favor? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Have a good rest of the week. It's supposed to be nice weather yet for another.
I want to say thank you to the staff. The piece provided is very helpful.
Thank you. Well, we do have good staff, and that was evident during floods, and I keep got a pretty good staff, so, and I know you do as well.
I don't think people realize the importance of, we never hear about, especially sewer, but when it doesn't work. And when you consider the years and years and years that it has worked, yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for coming across the river, and it's good to see you. And
Likewise.
More of you.
yes, totally. So
Well,
we'll
and-
see you at a couple of events, I know.
And you're more than welcome to attend, the public can attend these meetings.
I'm gonna be for
As a private
you're not gonna
citizen.
hear much from me over the next 6. I wanna, whoever the new mayor is, to give them lots of space. So it's time for me to step backwards and